Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here live at 5 for a Tuesday, January the 12th, 2021. All those numbers, ones and twos. But today, live at 5 is inclusive of so be it and think for ourselves. And there are things that nourish our bodies. Now, as the format is, for most people that are familiar with it will know, we'll talk about something. I usually bring something new, something different, something completely different into our sphere of maybe learning something interesting, and then go into some news, maybe something currently, maybe something actually just important for currently, not necessarily all around this crazy event that's going on, but crazy but good in some ways. And then to share some jokes. Yeah, some laugh to lighten it up so that we're not so serious and taking everything seriously, but at the same time, it is what it is. So let's get onto that something new. I'm just going to turn my phone off, realizing I didn't turn off but it is off now. I learned from somebody today, Gordon, I'm going to say his name, and he was here earlier, and what I learned, and let's bring this as well to possibly other things that it actually probably does, but I can't say for sure, but it probably does, and there's probably some other examples you may have, or I could come up with, or research, but here we go. New Zealand. There, the Maori, which is what we call native, darker skin native people that were there. But guess what? There were people before then, white skin people that now, from what I can gather from what Gordon says, and just watching the trailer, it doesn't say it in there, white people, but they are white people with blonde hair, blue eyes, red hair, freckles, that kind of thing. And apparently they came from the date in the trailer. I'm going to post the trailer, but there is two films, a film, and there's part one and part two. And you can access them through YouTube, but I'm just going to post the trailer. And we're talking from dating the bones and the skulls, and so that those people are still alive today. How many generations? I don't know. 700 generations. But the timing back is 2000 BC. 2000 BC. They're very peaceful people, which is somewhat in line, because Gordon mentioned Celtic. With the Celtics, they, even pagans, were in peaceful people. They really, nature is something that they work with, which is this book, Ishmael, which I think has been around for a while, with the gorilla as the teacher and then the human as the student, but they're going through the natural laws as well. So nature, natural law comes up. So the thing around New Zealand, what they say in the trailer, is that they were burying the information about these people, that they really, maybe there's something about natives that would actually be more attractive, or maybe that's what they just wanted us to think. So whoever they is. So they're buried the information, or more, let's call it more fictional than anything, and then only teaching that the Maori people were the first people in New Zealand. Hi, Angel. And isn't that crazy? So we kind of have a situation where, well, how many other scenarios were or have been pulled together or planted or created where we didn't get the truth, where they didn't say the truth. Now, whether it's about people and planets on our planet here and traveling and that, you can almost bring in anything. And as they say, which you've probably heard before, the victors write the books, not the people who have perished, but the victors. And however they want to tell the story, as big as they want, as that big fish that got away story, it can be just like that. So be mindful that these things do exist, and maybe over time some we're going to uncover by what these good people did, this documentary, and others we may never know about. And just so happens that those people still reside and live and have always lived in, not always lived in New Zealand, because they came across the South Sea from Peru, and perhaps I think from what my friend Gordon said, that they actually came over from Europe or even India or something like that, because there was some wars or something, and so they moved along, but they planted themselves in other areas as well, not just New Zealand. Anyway, I look forward to seeing the full documentary. So that's something new, something different. It was new for me even today, and that's the fun part. I can share new things with you. And hello, Ferdinand. Yes, so that's something new. Now, what are these people called? I'm just going to look it up quickly here to see it. I'm going to say the name of it, so it's just top of mind in there. New Zealand Skeletons in the Cupboard. And the one lady in there is Monica Matamua Nagati Hotu Kuai. So they have this interesting name. But I think that will be interesting to watch and to learn about. The first peoples in New Zealand. Now, were they the first peoples in New Zealand? Maybe even not. And when I did my research in Ireland, I think it was the Celts. She supposedly came from Spain, but they conquered the land from a group that was already there. They liked the beautiful. They had famine back in Spain, and this is where the dark-haired, sometimes I think they call it the black Irish, but they're very dark eyes, dark hair. But then you had other groups coming in there, the Vikings and that kind of stuff. So that's that. That's the something new. I think that's really cool. The thing I wanted to talk about, I do bring it up the odd time, is about vitamins and supplements, and just to reiterate some of the things I've even said before around the studies. Now, these aren't the only studies that exist for I'm just going to call it Vita D, and it definitely is a 3, so Vita D3. In our body is very important. It's not even a vitamin D, actually. A vitamin, it's actually a non-steroidal hormone, and it has huge impacts on our body, from bone health to hormonal to supporting our immune system, communication, many things probably beyond. And this is coming from working with directly a 7-year very bright biochemist and learning all this. But there's a lot of research out there that's been on Vita D for a very long time. And it was really promoted heavily there for a bit on being the C word, anti-C word. And depending on how much you had in your system will determine which of the C's that you would get or not get, right? Which ones, the higher you got, the more vitamin Vita D that you got, you would have less chance of this cancer. And if you had more, then you less chance of even this and that, right? Going forward. So vitamin D is very, very important. And it is definitely, as studies go, the people who had COVID were tested and they actually had very low amounts. That's what they discovered. It's not even crazy to think that most people, if you do your research, a deficiency in Vita D, and a lot of conditions, the studies have already been done, that they find low amounts. And it could even be a vegan, and they can find low amounts. So it's not even tied to the diet. Certain things like stress and our dysfunctioning digestive tract will interfere with the processing, especially of plants. And plant nutrients that way. So we have this nutrient that's being touted as very much supportive in our body of our immune function. And one of the things that Dr. Eric Naputi, because I did put up a website there, so I listened to him about it, and I just kind of want to say it in his words so that you can hear it that way. But quite simply, it supports the overall body, and it supports our immune function. Very instrumental in communication, instrumental in hormones, instrumental in bone health. You've heard that before. You need vitamin D in order to have calcium absorption, mineral absorption. So synergistically is how I would look at a whole range of nutrients. He also mentioned zinc, which is an important mineral, mineral that's been known for to be good for immune health. And the different reasons, even we think of immune health, there's different, how can I say, fine tuning is what each of these essential nutrients do on the body. So there would be like a fine tuning, which is what Eric Naputo or any research that you do, you might get some fine tunings. Well, how does it help, the bones exactly? What helps this part, and how does it help the immune system? Well, it's this piece, but there are other pieces there, like the calcium for the bones. So the big thing is, I keep thinking about the stages of disease, and I'm just going to go into that, and then I want to actually talk about how you would increase your vitamin D and Vita D and the mineral zinc, mineral Z in naturally as possible, and what things to look for in supplementation. A little bit of a range from a higher quality to not so much, just so that you know, because the dosing that they're telling you to take for vitamin D, at least Eric is very high. It is higher than what is recommended on supplementation, at least here in Canada, as the natural product number. They can only tell you on the bottle to take 1,000. Now Eric's saying take 5 to 10,000, and it's going to be different depending on the source. So the better quality source you have, the better that your digestive system is working. The route in which it gets into the body is actually going to make a difference. It's going to make a difference. So I'll talk to that in a minute. Now I have to go remember what I was going to talk about. Anyway, funny as it is, let's just talk about the supplementation, and it will come back to me what I was going to talk about. So let's talk about the quality. Okay. And I'm going to I like to make as much, stages of disease, that's what it was. So when I'm doing my research or I'm listening, I always try to tie it back to the stages of disease, which is detailed in my book, but I used to always say the short version, which I'm going to do now, to audiences that way. So let's just kind of give you the background, stages of disease. Just as it sounds, these are stages of disease that you would go from one side where you'd start beginning, which is enervation, so low energy. Then the toxins build up, and that's called toxemia. That's the second stage. And when toxicity builds up, you get irritated by that toxicity buildup. And what is a symptom of irritation? Itchiness. Okay, itchiness. And other things can come into play there, injury, infection. So one of the things about around this event is actually to strengthen the body so you're less likely to get the infection. That's important, right? To stay away from from getting infected. And Eric Naputo says that as well. So we want to stay away from there. Why do we want to stay away from there? Because the fourth stage is called inflammation. And this is where you get those symptoms as you know you got it. The fever, the heat, the swelling, that's from an injury primarily, but inflammation. And if it's acute, then your body's dealing with it, and then you work back to, the third, the second, and the first stage, and so forth. And then I'm not really going to talk much beyond it, but I'm going to say what they are. If you go into chronic inflammation, you go into the fifth stage, which they call ulceration. If I'm going to tie this to cardiovascular health, you're going to think of splitting of the arteries, or ulcers in the stomach, ulcers on the skin, okay? Next to that, if the body isn't getting what it needs to be nourished and, vital energy is coming down, you can't have splitting arteries, you can't have open wounds, so the body comes in and they call it induration in the stages, but it can also be called hardening or scarring. So if it's a man-made ulceration, that's or a wound, but surgery, that's ulceration, right, where something is cut. But it's opening, it's splitting. In a natural sense, it would be doing that. So induration is hardening and scarring, so that makes sense. The body is not capable to nourish that area anymore, and it gets degenerate in a lot of ways, less vibration. Now, the seventh and final stage is called fungation, and really what's happening here is the body is absolutely still trying to survive, right? And the stage 8 would be you are 6 feet under, but the stage 7 is fungation, where this is where the oncologist will say you have cancer. These are the 7 stages, and then when I'm with the client, I like to describe them a little bit more and to their particular situation, so everybody can feel much more comfortable about the stages. It happens for all disease, so I want to bring that in. Infection is the 3rd stage, and it is to pay attention. So avoiding infection would mean, what would you have to do? Detoxify. You'd have to make sure the system is nourished enough and less stress enough, because that also makes an impact on this whole stages. And so it's the detoxifying. There's so many easy ways to detoxify, more in depth, yes, and that. But how do we detoxify optimally? Well, we have optimum nutrition, right? Not even a cleanse program, but optimum nutrition. And vitamin D, even zinc, many of the things are going to support our function of our body. And in actual fact, all the essential nutrients that we know of would then support detoxification, and also moving well, and also sleeping, and sleeping the right hours. So you can see where I'm going. All these life studies, the moving the well, thinking well, that's kind of live straight. All of this comes into play. That's why I kind of want it to frame it. So we want to avoid the infection to begin with, and how you do that is, yes, drink enough water for sure. Nourish with good wholesome foods. So let's think about vitamin D. Vitamin D is, or Vita D, is actually a sunshine nutrient. So you spend any time outdoors, no matter the season or anything like that, and you can store a lot of vitamin D apparently. So Vita D can be stored. It's fat soluble nutrient. So what do we mean by that? Well, it's stored in fat. So if you're going to take a supplement, the ideal supplement of vitamin D is in an oil. That's where you would find your vitamin D, in an oil, not the little white tablets. Now, if you're stuck, okay, the white little tablets might give you some vitamin D. But when people say amounts of 5,000 or 10,000, 10,000 is actually the drug vitamin D. So if you get recommended the drug vitamin D from the pharmaceutical companies, or from the doctors that are from the pharmaceutical company, it's around 10,000. Now, there is always a stress on the body if the supplementation is not of great quality. It can be, I had a client really early on when I was starting where she was taking a lot of supplements, and little did I know at that time, because people are so adamant about taking the supplements and even taking more when they're not feeling well, that it was actually causing digestive stress on her body, affecting the liver. Liver is part of the digestive system. And once she went off all of her supplements, she felt wonderful. I mean, she just got well, and she felt really well. So this is the thing about supplementation and taking more, especially therapeutic, is the quality of supplementation that you take. So let's make sense of this as far as supplements go. The water-soluble nutrients, even protein is water soluble. They are best in a liquid, okay? In a liquid. Well, we know meat's meat. Preferably you're not cooking it, overcooking it, but it's raw. It's a very high water content, meat is, when it hasn't been dried out by the cooking process. So if you're talking about micronutrients, not protein, that's a macronutrients, or fat, how many people actually take fat as a powder? They don't. And that's why it's almost crazy that if you take certain supplementations and they're in a powdered form, but yet there's fat, yeah, no, not really. Now, protein, not so much, protein powder, whey protein, yeah, that's easier because that's water. But if it's a fat, it should come in a fat. If it's fat-soluble nutrient, it should come in a fat. If it's fat, it should look like fat. Be fat, and that's how you take it. And some people are taking tablespoons of coconut oil, maybe even butter or ghee, olive oil. They have, where you take a tablespoon of olive oil. These help with the absorption, not only of the fat-soluble nutrients, but then it just kind of all synergistically works together, helps with the vitamins, just helps overall. So getting fat in your diet, and the healthy fat, preferably the raw fat, or at least less processed. We know raw would be cold, pressed, organic olive oil, preferably in a dark bottle. No, should be in a dark bottle, absolutely, and stored in a dark place, a cool place. Some say don't store it in the fridge, that's too cold, but yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things around fat. I could talk 2 hours for that. But so vitamin D should be in an oil. Now, next to the little white tablet, what you're going to be familiar with is what they call emulsions. Vitamin D emulsion, still highly processed. Is it better than the white crystallized tablet? Yes, but it's still emulsion. There's other things like, I'm not going to say names of products, but it is drops that you would take, and sometimes they're kind of, you have to check, could be the emulsion drops, or it's kind of, but it's got to be in an oil. Now the next thing for Vita D to be mindful of is how much of that is vitamin D, Vita D3, not D2. Vita D3 is what is the active form and the form to get. And that may be tricky when you're looking at the bottle, because they're only going to tell you what the Vita D3 is, and there's different processes. Now, I don't want to get too complicated, but there is a couple of processes in order to extract the vitamin D naturally. Most of it comes from sheep's wool. Sheep's wool, that's where it comes. They're like a reverse process to get the vitamin D out of the sheep's wool. It must be something, the oils in the wool, and then the deproduction with that, and it's kind of there, and that's where it comes from. So there's different production. So one is highly processed. I guess it's no different than if I were to prepare you a dish, and I give you a dish, somehow, I'm cutting up and I give you a raw food dish, versus here I cooked it, I baked it, I whatever, and I give you, it's the same food, but there's one's processed with, cooked and high heat, and the other one isn't, but they're both vegetables, right? So just kind of give you an idea. With oils, it's best if they're raw. It's just better. If oils are heated, they tend to lose their vibration, let's just say, and more so the more or higher they're cooked. And how you can tell if they're oxidized, they taste terrible. Like if you taste a good natural, hopefully not falsely created flavor of olive oil, you'll know it's a good olive oil. No question about it. You will know. So what I take is I take an oil in seal oil, in raw seal oil, a vitamin D with the good processing of the Vita D for Vita D3. That's what you would mostly get when you get that process. You get mostly that, and in an oil. So that's how it looks. It's in an oil, and it comes in. And the beauty of the raw is that it can sublingually absorb. When things are cooked or highly processed, like our lovely vegetable oils, does this sound appetizing to you? And I remember saying this to some doctors, and I was presenting to some doctors. Does this sound appetizing? Refined, bleached, and deodorized. Refined, which is high heat, bleached, and deodorized. That's what, yes, D3 liquid. So liquid is good. You'll just understand more if that's emulsified. But that's the typical refining or processing or preparation. Vegetable oils, olive oil will typically go through. If it doesn't say cold pressed, extra virgin, all of that stuff, it will be refined, bleached, and iodized. There is no language for it to have to put on the label. It's called RBD in our food processing language. And they, of course, they use chemicals for that. But when they heat it, it's less likely to break down. And that's why the vegetable oil can stay. If you buy a big thing of canola oil and you put it in your cupboard, that's why the oil can stay there for so long, because it's been heated, it's been destroyed, the vibration of it's been taken out. So great for being shelf stable, great for you that you don't have molds growing on it, but not so great for the health of our body. When you put things through high heat, it turns a color like apples, that are typically white when you cut them, but looks brown when you have apple juice. I know you'll never look at apple juice the same way again. It's oxidized apple. So the idea is when the fats get oxidized from the heat, when we're talking the canola oils, the sunflower oils, and all of that, they bleach it so that does it look brown like apple juice looks versus the apple. And then there's a smell to that. If you've ever fried foods, and the fat is not, it's an old fat or whatever it is, you get the smell. So they deodorize it, right, to get the smell out. Although I always challenge people to taste their oil, the typical oil that they would use to cook with, and in a teaspoon, just straight in the mouth, just as it is, not covered up with salt, not covered up with any food, but just to taste it, to get an idea of what it is that they're adding to their foods or cooking their foods in. It's part of their food. They're ingesting it for sure. So when it comes to back to supplements and we think about minerals, minerals are water soluble, and there's organic and inorganic minerals. Inorganic minerals are the rocks. So we probably use some of it, of course. We get it in our water. When it comes to foods, and the foods take up the water and the minerals, they make it into organic minerals. So if you're taking minerals, and particularly zinc usually comes by itself, then what you want to ideally get is, if it's in water, great. You can get these minerals mostly online. I'm not sure in a health food store, but you can check yours. It would be in a water. So unlike Vita D, the minerals can come in water. So you may have enough minerals depending on, I get it from a spring, so there's supposed to be, but every spring may not the same. What rock does it flow over? And that would be still inorganic. So it's mindful that organic will be absorbed into the body if you got it from your food, as long as the soil had the minerals, and the fruits and vegetables bring up what they need to grow how they want. They don't always have the same, what we call, nutritional profile. They don't. So you can look up zinc, do some little bit of this for your homework, and see what sources they come from. You can look up Vita D as well. You'll see, D2, maybe D1. It's going to be different as well, and the body needs to convert. So if you're under any stress at all, that will hinder the conversion factor that has to happen for our human bodies, right? So for our human bodies. So there's good sources, but quality is going to make a difference. It's best that you spend the money, especially for Vita D, and even the omegas. It's worth it. Now, omegas, with the fat itself, is it is more of a macronutrient. It falls into fats category. So even though it's supplement and sold as a supplement, as protein is and can be sold as a supplement, those are macronutrients, and we need more of them. That's why the dosages is a teaspoon, tablespoon, or a whole drink of protein. That kind of thing is for that reason. They're macronutrients, but the micronutrients, you can check and you can see the limits. But what people are saying these days about the Vita D, like even Dr. Eric, is about therapeutic. And like I said, if you go to look at your supplements, at least in Canada, there's a threshold that they can recommend daily dose. So the supplement's going to be tuned into, if it's one pill or whatever it is, Suggested supplementation is going to be 1,000 international units of Vita D. That's what it's going to say. Make sure it's Vita D3. But that's what it's going to do. So be it's 5,000 to 10,000, I want you to understand how's your digestive system working, liver. Pay attention to see if how you feel, if you're taking therapeutic doses of supplements, just so that's not too overburdened for your system, maybe on everything else that you're doing. If it's in oil, it'll be easier to digest than if it's those white little tablets, and sometimes the Vita D will come in combination of other things as well, just as they can, just so they get everything in one. So that's why I just wanted to come on and talk at least about to that. So you're prepped and looking for the thing, and if you're going to want to get to 5,000, I know I take 5,000 in the D, and then I hold it sublingually, but there's also vitamin A, and they actually compete for the same enzymes. So if my body needs more D, it's going to take more D. If it needs A, or there's a combination, the body's going to be the miracle here. And that's why I kind of do that, because both vitamin D and A are very important, and they work together. So that's why synergistically things like the water-soluble B vitamins, even though our body is supposed to make them, but they say most people don't. Maybe that's just a marketing play. I don't know. But taking all of the Bs, a multi-B can be first and foremost the best thing, but then sometimes therapeutically they're giving just one of them, certain ones, for the reason that they've deemed helpful in our body. But I just wanted to talk about that simply. If you can take it with your meals, even better. Especially, I know I take the seal oil. I like to take it with my meals. Just after or just before, but I take it at other times as well. It's not a big deal. But really, it's not about the supplement itself. It's more about how it can help with the absorption, because fats will help with the absorption of the fat-soluble nutrients in the food. So if I wanted to help how my food is digesting better, to what degree, I don't know. I mean, there's no measurements for that, and I can't prove a darn thing on that. Then you'll see. You'll just have to, like mostly, and even science, you just kind of have to go with it and pay attention to how you're feeling, and just know if you're taking some form of vitamin, Vita D, or I don't prefer multis, to tell you the truth, because everything is crystallized, everything is highly processed with the multis, and I'd rather, again, take the water soluble in water. I think I'll show you what it is. There's no label on it, but this is a multi-mineral, right? So it's in the blue bottle for the reasons it is. It's good, and I'll just squirt this, not in my mouth. It tastes like minerals, like you can taste iron minerals, and I'll just put that in my water a couple times a day, and that's organic. And then with the seal oil, I will just put a little toothpick hole in there, or I'd use a pen actually, and then just squirt that under my tongue. And then I take a tonic, which is high in adaptogenic or B vitamins and adaptogenic nutrients, or the various nutrients, but they're water. There's nothing oil about that at all. Those are my top three, but the top fourth one, I'm going to just mention supplementation here, because calcium is one of our most abundant minerals. Is what I've started doing is keeping my eggshells, and I take the eggshells, dry them very, very well, and if you grind them up, you have to grind them up into a powder. That's organic source, and from my research, that is the next to getting the other calcium you're going to get in your food, is optimum over the current supplementation forms out there. Maybe the water, calcium in water through organic that way, is probably good too as well, but I've started to sprinkle that even in food and even on dishes, because there's really no taste to it. So yes, I'll put it in the protein shakes easily enough, but I have been adding it to, I think over Christmas, actually even put it in the turkey stuffing, because again, there's no taste to it, and it's just a matter, I think I took a teaspoon even and sprinkled it on the stuffing. So that's a good thing about calcium. It's a mineral, It matters not that you cook it versus all the vitamins. You don't want to cook them. So the more you cook you're just going to, you're going to cook out. Now, sometimes they say steaming is good, but if you've ever looked at the steamed water, you can see the color that has come into the water, and then they say, well, use that for soups, or use that, drink that water. Anyway, a whole conversation can be had more and more on any of, it's just supplementation alone. So the idea is do something, with the Vita D for sure. If it's a healthy lifestyle and you're outside, and you get even outside in all seasons, it's great. But understand that apparently if we wash our skin regularly every day, twice a day, especially in the winter with the face, and we wash our hands all the time, that natural oil, be it cholesterol, it needs to be there in order to convert the sunlight rays. It needs to be there, and that's why lowering cholesterol is a whole other conversation to have, which we're not going to go to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this event and how I'm feeling, but mostly just hearing Dr. Naputo say their meetings. I'm hearing about these meetings that are happening. It's including law enforcement. So it's great. I'm feeling that this is awesome, just hearing that there's meetings, and certain people who know enough, especially Dr. Eric, and being a medical doctor, and as he says, he takes pathology. They all have to take pathology, so they understand the viral load, herd immunity. If you've had it already and you've got natural immunity, well then, why do you need to get the vaccine? All of those kind of things that they would know and be able to present enough. Because how can any person, when presented the information, want their freedoms taken away? Why would they want that? I mean, much that's laid out in some of the documentations right in front of us, the Great Reset, somewhat comes down from the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and what they've been doing, and Agenda 2030, all of these lay it out as to how they want to control, how they want to they know what's better for us. They don't go into detail, so that's one thing. And there's so much left out, so many questions to ask, that unless anybody sees that kind of detail, I would never sign off as a human being for anybody to have that much control, to determine medically they're going to put in your body what you need to have when this happens. I mean, it would be a mess for humanity. Huge mess. So what else was I going to talk about? Yeah, so the phrase, so be it, I thought about this. There's a little bit of studying that I was doing this morning. So be it is something that we use. So be it. But there's another way to say it. So be it. Like so be it. As in, truly to yourself, true to yourself. Be who you truly are. So be it. So if any of us think about how we want to be treated or what we're looking at, we've got to be it. So in this case, the truth, our true nature, being in the laws of nature, is to speak up, is to I'm going to put this article again. It's about civil disobedience. It's wonderful. It's only 3 pages, but take it in, because it talks about the position that he feels of leadership, that's in this case government, should be looked at, and how they should even think of themselves. Right? You know how we've heard many times, for the people, for the people. They work for us, they work for the people, and that's gotten away. So we really don't have that. But this civil disobedience article, only 3 pages, is great to read. Even if you think about building a community, which is some of what people do, off-grid, all that kind of stuff. It's very helpful to understand this because we're working together. And this is a wonderful article. I'm going to put it down below again. I think that was it that I was going to do. So just hang on, just hang on, and things are happening, but to civil disobey, I think is to your comfort level, just get more comfortable with it. You know, you're not, it's crazy any other way, truthfully. I'll probably put the letter from Chris Schaefer around, this is around the masks, so for those who haven't read that, I'll put that down below. I'm just going through here. Yeah. Yeah. I could go into other stuff, but I think other people go into it. It's just being true to ourselves. So be it. If you want to have the life you want to have, you've got to be it. Okay? You've got to so be it. Not just the other way. So be it. That's right, Fernand. So be it. You know, be it. Just welcome that. Okay, joke time. Let's go to the joke time. Got 3 here, and I actually read these ahead of time. So one of them I threw out. I don't want to read that one. Okay. What kind of exercise do lazy people do? What kind of exercise do lazy people do? Diddly squats. There you go. That was funny. Next. Why was the mortgage so upset? Why was the mortgage so upset? Because it was a loan. A loan. A and then loan. So we have all of that. Oh, you're welcome, Ferdinand. I mean, this is so, you know, this is so easy for me to do, to come on and just speak about things top of mind and important things. Last one. Have you ever tried to eat a clock? Have you ever tried to eat a clock? I know most of your answers are no. But the answer here is, it's very time consuming. There you go. Okay, that's our jokes, that's our day. Let's wrap it up. Go and be merry and enjoy your evening. Think about anything but what's going on. Something like that. I know I've got a Zoom call. I actually have a client at 9:30 to do a guided meditation. So it's a wonderful full evening, which is good. But yeah, there's great, isn't it? It's just great. You know, one hand has got to be great. Whatever you make of it is going to be great. So I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful evening. And until next time, live at 5, definitely Mondays, always Mondays. But we'll see what kind of comes up over the next number of days. And I am hearing good news about airlines and how they're stepping up and they're getting some, how can I say it, some breaks. That's what I call it. They're getting some breaks. And that's going to be fair. So that's encouraging as well. So good news, good news. And that's from somebody who actually works in the airline industry. So it's nice. So yeah, we'll see you on the Zoom tonight. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. Post the links below, whether it's this evening or first thing tomorrow. But I encourage you, live at 5, there's a bunch of links below, usually a handful. And I only want to post those things I think that are things that are going to bring you, I don't want to say enlightenment, because it's that, but just bring you further to understanding, be able to put the pieces together when it comes to moving forward. So I only try to post things that are going to be of interest and for us to understand going forward that, yeah, you know, you check out these New Zealand people, the people that were there before the Maori. I mean, that's interesting. That just proves to us they've been, can be, whoever they are, can suppress information. And we have suppressed information at this time, don't we? So just another evidence of that. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.